Hi, I'm Daniella Malfitano. I'm a media host, a content creator, a chef, and an integrative nutritionist, and this is my Creator Session.
This is a Creator Session first for us. Actually, I lied. This is a second. If you have been around for a while, you would know that the very first Creator Session we did was with Abby Rodriguez. It was live and we cooked a meal together over Zoom. We have come a long way since then, and it is time for our second chef to join us on Creator Sessions. Chef Daniella Malfitano is a plant-based chef who has a pretty incredible list of things that she's done as a culinarian. She's hosted a show on PBS, has written several cookbooks, is the host for a food and wine festival, and the list goes on. But when you boil all of that down, and pun intended, she is a creator. In 2020, she followed this intuitive gut feeling that she had and transitioned herself and her business to a vegan, plant-based lifestyle. That transition really helped her as a creator be her most authentic self as a chef. Creating food is the ultimate art form, and there are so many fun ways that comes through in this Creator Session.
I'm so excited to be in this space right now because this is not what I normally do. First of all, I don't have any recipes. I just want to cook, I want to tell some stories, and I want to be with creators to share what this space is, what I created here in my studio, but this happens to also be my garage. So just heads up, you might hear some planes overhead. You may hear a weird squeak coming from this fan above. We can't do anything about it because we are in my garage, and this is actually the final day that I'm using the studio space because I'm about to break it down and head to Hawaii, where I'm relocating not only myself but my whole brand and studio. And so today we are going to be making a celebratory meal, and I'm going to be telling you some stories along the way. So the menu today is really special. I'm going to be starting with a delicious purple romaine or red romaine salad, just a gorgeous garden salad with heirloom tomatoes, some red onion, a delicious Dijon vinaigrette. Then I'm gonna move on and make some pesto pasta, but not just any pesto, plant-based pesto, really simple. And then I'm gonna finish our meal with something sweet because you have to have dessert, right? Some delicious brownie bites. They happen to be raw and vegan, but I promise you won't be able to tell. This meal means a lot to me, and I'll explain why. All right, I'm gonna start by making a salad. I love this recipe. I grew up in a house where cooking and food wasn't something that we did all the time, but my mom always made sure that we had a fresh salad available for dinner, and she taught me how to make the best dressing. So I'm gonna use some red romaine, also known as purple romaine. It's so gorgeous. But I love this because whenever I make something like this, my mom is with me. So I love it. You know, my mom was, I think, integral in helping me to eat healthy for sure, my whole life. And what I did learn from it is that health was important. Health became a priority for me as a kid because I wanted to be as vibrant and thrive as much as I saw my mom was always living, you know, her best. And that always felt good. So whenever I make a fresh big salad every day, which I try to do every day, it's like my mom is here, like, you know, with me in my ear, reminding me that it's so important for us to have our veggies and our greens, right? My mom was a nurse for many years. She's retired now. And so I think part of her commitment to her health was watching people who were sick all the time in the hospital. And she really wanted, you know, me and my sister's life and health to be as healthy as possible. And I was really always really inspired by my mom and her commitment to caring for people and being in service of people. And so she really inspired me a lot. And, you know, as I got to a stage in my life where it was time for me to make a decision about my career path, you know, I decided to pursue nursing for the first few years, and then, you know, made a switch to culinary arts after like a lot of thought. But I'm glad that I had that taste of being, you know, considering nursing as an opportunity for me, because before getting to food, I realized like whatever I choose, it has to be in service of other people. It has to be as a commitment to other people living their best. So I found my own way, and I'm really grateful for it. I remember when I was really little, like I would cook a ton when I was little, and my parents especially and my siblings would be really kind of like so shocked and surprised that I was like kind of obsessed with food. And everyone was always very supportive, but especially my parents. My parents, you know, were always kind of cautious that I wouldn't be able to sort of like make a career out of food. And when I pursued culinary arts, I think my parents were a little, you know, just a little bit nervous at first, like that it wouldn't turn out to be like the career I wanted. But because they nurtured me as a little kid so much, I was able to kind of like develop my skill and my craft at such an early age that no matter what I did other than cooking, food was always a part of my life, which was a really big deal. I also really grew up with my grandparents as an influence. So my Nanu and Nana, who came to the United States from Sicily, were, you know, really just very supportive of my love for food. And for them, it didn't matter. Like if I could make a living in culinary arts, it was like me tapping into my Italian heritage, you know, like they were so proud of that. And growing up, we would make like sausage in the garage. We would like dry herbs. So I have actually this beautiful container and jar of my Nanu's homemade dried oregano, which I've had for many, many years. And I tried just to use it sparingly, but today is a celebratory meal, so we're gonna use a little bit in the salad dressing. And when I smell this, it's literally like my Nanu is here with me. So thank you, Nanu Luciano Malfitano. Love you. Food is totally an art form. You know, I think that sometimes food or chefs can be like removed from the artist's creator space, but truly I think that couldn't be more wrong, because food is an art unlike any other art. And it's funny because food as an art form is the thing that connects all of us no matter what. I say with any industry and with any craft, if you can make it your own, if you can make it personal, then it's an art. I think one of my first food memories and like a meal that really mattered to me was, I'm just gonna taste this, because you have to taste as you go, right? Like you're not cooking until you're tasting. Hold on. So good. Oh my God, yum. I think I need a little lemon. The first food memory that I had was when I was, I think 6. I was really obsessed with watching PBS cooking shows every weekend. And I remember one particular weekend, it was the summer, and I went to the market and I got a bag full of peaches, and I was determined to make a fresh homemade peach pie and like surprise my family. But not just any peach pie, like I wasn't gonna buy store-bought pie crust. I didn't know that was a thing back then. I had my mom like get me all the ingredients to make a classic like pie crust, and went home, I baked it all off. It was like beautiful. It was probably it was really delicious tasting. It probably wasn't the most beautiful thing to look at, but it was really yummy. And I presented it to my parents and my sister Angelina, and like everyone was blown away. And I remembered in that moment thinking like, wow, like people really kind of like, they're excited about something that I've created. Like that was the first memory that I connected with being a creator. Like in that moment, I realized I am a creator. Like my excitement around food is a creation, it is an art, and my family's responding to it. And if they respond to it, then maybe other people will too. So I was really inspired in that moment and on that day. And I think I continued to cook. I mean, I never looked back at that point. It's really scary to pursue like anything that you love. And for me, to pursue food as a career was intimidating, because I am, you know, a woman and I'm petite and I like to wear makeup and I'm girly, and you know what I mean? Like I just always was fearful that I wasn't gonna be able to be my own self, my real true self in the kitchen, because kitchens have a notorious, you know, like stereotype of being really toxic, hard, you know, environments. And yes, those environments exist, and I certainly have worked in kitchens where that was the case, but I was able to really navigate and find my way in the industry. And I think it has a lot to do with the people that I worked for. It was really important for me to work for female chefs, and the first, you know, real wonderful restaurant that I ever worked in, and the second in Chicago and in New York, and both under the executive chefs that were females. So in Chicago, I worked under Monique Chauhan at Vermilion Restaurant, and then in New York City, I worked under Gabrielle Hamilton at Prune Restaurant. And I think that was really important for me because I got to experience an environment in the kitchen that was nurturing, and it was motherly, and it was definitely about the art form and definitely about being in service of other people. And it was not ego-driven, it was food-driven, it was service-driven. And I've of course worked in other restaurants too where I got a very different experience. So I think I'm so grateful. I always say this all the time. I think because of the experience in New York and in Chicago, it defined me as a chef. It helped me to establish myself in a way that like, I can do this. Like it really empowered me to feel like this is right. And I can just find my own way of doing it and like my own the kitchens that I want to work in and make it right for myself and the environment that I want to be creating in and a part of. So I'm gonna now make the next recipe. I'm gonna start making the pesto for our pasta. Pasta is definitely and was a staple in my home and is still a staple in my home. So I have to explain my ethnic background because people always ask me. My mother is Latina or Hispanic and my father is Sicilian. And so I grew up with, I call myself double spicy. I grew up with definitely like the Hispanic heritage, but also the Italian American heritage. And for those of you who know Sicilian culture, you know that we're a different kind of people. Very proud, very excited, very passionate, and pasta was absolutely a part of my upbringing. My dad actually used to make fresh homemade pasta. Most Sundays, he would spend the day making the dough, and then we would roll out the dough and we would actually like hand cut it and we would dry it on these like racks. And this was something that we did a lot as a kid. And my dad was a very busy person. He had, multiple careers, but he always found time to do this on very special occasions. And, Sunday was a special occasion. That's when we really had family meal. And so I remember really having that experience. But don't think that like I grew up in like a gourmet food household, because I didn't. It was just about like pasta was the thing that we did that was homemade. And we did make a little like dried oregano in the garage, and we did make a little sausage in the garage, but that's only because like I'm Italian and I'm Hispanic, and that's, I guess, like just like what you do. So random. Okay, so I love this recipe. I'm gonna make some pesto because it connects me with not only my Sicilian heritage, but also connects me with my plant-based community and the way that I live and cook now. This sauce is really fresh and it's vibrant and it's healthy, and look how gorgeous this basil is. I mean, come on. And the cool thing about this pesto too, which is why I wanted to feature it today in our meal, is pesto, you can use all parts of the plant, which was so important for me growing up. When I first started loving food, I realized how much waste there was in the food space. And I knew that as soon as I made a commitment to being a chef, I wanted to really honor food in a way that I feel was missed sometimes by chefs or people that cooked at home. So I love this dish because you can kind of throw it all together in a blender and it's still fresh and it's vibrant. Oh, it's so good, it's so good. I think I started realizing that it was time to make a shift with my art form, my craft. As a chef, when the beginning of 2020 hit and the world was changing. And that was like a really clear moment for me as an adult in this industry, having already cooked for like 10 years in professional kitchens on my own as a consultant. I had started doing media work. I had a television show on PBS. I've written many cookbooks. And now I started doing content creation online. There was like a demand that was unmet, which was how to eat healthy, but how to actually empower people also to do that. Not just to like feature the food and make it all like beautiful and crave-worthy, but also to inspire those to make actual changes. And I knew that if I felt like it was time to make a change in my kitchen and change the ethos of how I eat and see food, it was probably time for other people. And I have to tell you, couldn't have been more right on the timing. I had tried many iterations of my business before actually making a real big change to my food and the way that I approach cooking. And nothing really kind of hit or took off until I actually transitioned to a plant-based diet and a plant-based lifestyle. So I particularly love this recipe because classic pesto is made with cow's milk Parmesan cheese, and it is a wonderful, delicious food, but it can be really rich and heavy. And I realized like people don't really want that. Like people at this time in 2020 and now in 2021, like people really want fresh, vibrant, alive. They want anything that they can get their hands on or any content and information that they can get around how to thrive in life. And I think that there's no better way to do that than in the kitchen. I really found really great ways to veganize my food, so make classic recipes plant-based. Like this recipe in particular, it's okay that I'm not using classic Parmigiano Reggiano. I'm using like plant-based Parmesan, which I can make really easily with nutritional yeast and nuts and Nanu's oregano and sea salt. Like it's not only more nutritious, but it is more delicious, I think. You're gonna save money and it's better for your health. So like these are win-win-wins all around. And now that I've made this shift to my kitchen and to the food space and the way that I approach cooking, I will never go back. I'm more excited now as a creator and as a chef than I ever have been in my entire career. I learned right away that after I followed my heart and like this intuitive gut feeling to like really transition into a healthier way of living and cooking and showcasing that for other people, I learned that people want that. And when I am authentic with how I'm being and if I am like really clear and not on the fence about how I eat or how I live or how I cook, my confidence comes through and it helps to empower somebody else to feel confident. You know what I mean? Like there's something that's a real direct connection with, my commitment to this now and how somebody else will feel really committed once they like try it, once they actually decide to test out a recipe or try something that I've made that feels like something that they would like or their family would like. So I found that it really connects people. When I'm feeling good and authentic, it helps my viewers and the people that I'm creating this content for feel like they can do it too. And I think that that's great. I think that there's no better way to create than to actually create authentically. I was so nervous when I made this change, mostly because, veganism and plant-based cooking at the start of 2020 was still not really even that popular. And I was nervous that I was gonna lose, followers. I was gonna lose, work relationships. I was gonna lose corporate clients. I was gonna really limit myself. I definitely had to say goodbye to some clients that I represented. I used to represent a salmon company and I knew that I couldn't do that anymore. It didn't feel right for me to do that, even though the money was great and the opportunity was great. I just knew that that wasn't for me. And that was really hard for certain clients and collaborations and partnerships that I had established. But what I gained from it was like a real true community and a group of people that want to know this information and live well, and then they inspire the next person because they're so excited about it. So I had never yet in my career felt like I had connected to something that was as potent. It was as inspiring, it really helped me to feel better about making this hard decision once I realized people were responding well to it. And once I got past this fear that I was gonna let people down or that I would be limited in my career opportunities, once I was okay with that and just accepted that and moved forward, there was no looking back. One of the ways that I create recipes is I get my brain back to what it was when I worked inside of restaurants day in, day out in production. And I try to actually always use different ingredients. So if I'm making a meal, I don't want to repeat any ingredients. And if I'm actually cooking for somebody, I want to make sure I understand the time and the place. So I want there to be seasonal ingredients used. I want it to be fresh. I want it to be alive as much as possible. And I also try to kind of make it really colorful. So one of the biggest parts of my studio is the fact that I have a huge rainbow on my wall. And that's actually a part of a set from the old program that I used to have on YouTube called My Choice Kitchen, which is a family-friendly cooking show. And I built this as an opportunity to remind people to eat the rainbow. So I'm gonna blend this up now. This is really simple. I said you just throw everything in, and you really do. Into a food processor, some herbs, some plant-based Parmesan, some salt and pepper, of course, lemon juice, and a little bit of pepperoncini or red pepper flake for heat if you want that. And just blend it up until it's the right consistency for you. That's it. I mean, it takes like a second. It's super, super simple. And you can add any other ingredients that you want. You want it a little bit more oily, add oil. You want it a little bit more thin, maybe for a pizza topping or pizza sauce, add some water, like whatever you want. And I like to add it and then blend it. And because we're putting this on pasta, I'm gonna add a little bit of extra virgin olive oil as opposed to water. Blend it again. I learned how to kind of mix and match flavors and like build a recipe without needing a recipe just by experience and trial and error. And a lot of people ask me this question. No, you definitely don't need to work in professional kitchens to know this. It's all about how confident you feel in this space. So if you're feeling really good, I'm telling you, your food will be better. Your food will come out better. It's gonna taste better. It's gonna look better, all of the above, right? Same thing with anything else. It's all energy. So if you're feeling really good, everything that you produce, everything about the way in which you are showing up in the world is gonna feel better as well. So I just learned trial and error, and you have to taste as you go. So that's really, really important. This is perfect now. I'm just gonna grab another tasting spoon. And people often miss this step. They like don't taste as they go because they just think it's right off the bat, but it's not always, right? And so this is like the next thing, the next phase of being a creator. So good, like so good. It's super lemony. Yum. Forgot an ingredient. This happens. I totally forgot an ingredient. I want to add some type of like nuts, all right? Some type of nut element. I'm gonna use red walnuts because they're so gorgeous, but here's what I mean. When I create a recipe, it doesn't matter what you're using. You just want the sort of classic idea of the recipe and then pull in your favorite ingredients. So traditional pesto is made with pine nuts or pinoles, but I'm gonna use walnuts, and not just any walnuts, these red walnuts, because it's gorgeous. I'm gonna throw this in. I should have done this earlier, but I forget. And yes, even I forget sometimes, especially if I'm not like following a recipe. I fail all the time, and I think I have like a higher failure rate than most people because I cook so often, right? But it's one of these things, like you can't take your failures too seriously. It's like, just like in life, you're either gonna fail and be able to repair it, or it's gonna be an ultimate fail and you just have to like throw it away and start over again. So I think it's really important just to not take it too seriously and just enjoy yourself in the kitchen, because when you're feeling good, your food is gonna feel great. All right, so I'm gonna make some chocolate brownie bites now, and this recipe is super personal. It's super special to me because I created it before going plant-based. I created it before I was a content creator. I actually wanted to make this for a corporate client who wanted something that was healthy but still delicious, like a dessert, right? And I think at the time it was like a picnic that they were trying to host. And so I created this recipe, and I realized so quickly that this is a magical recipe, because it really kind of like excites people. When they taste it, they're like, what? This is so delicious. And so this is a chocolate brownie bite. It is totally vegan and it is raw. And I'm telling you, you're gonna love it. And so it's super simple. It's just a few ingredients, and that's the way that I like to cook. I realized that one of the things that I didn't like about working in professional kitchens was that it was all about fancy food. It was like bougie. It was like only for people that had access to that. And I was really bothered by it. I wanted to reinvent food in a way that everyone could have access to. I felt like, food is a God-given right. It is not a privilege. And I found that a lot of times in the culinary arts, food is seen as a privilege, and only those that can afford it can have the best meals. And that is not the way that it should be, according to me. I wanted to do it a little differently. And not only did I want to do it differently, but I wanted it to be simple. Like, how can we make food fun again? How can we make it so approachable that it doesn't have to be chef prepared? It can be regular, normal person prepared and still delicious. And the way to do that is to simplify the recipe. So I like to take classic recipe and just make it as easy as possible. So let's talk about chocolate brownies. This was inspired by those little chocolate brownie bites that you could get like at the grocery store, right? I loved eating those as a kid, and I wanted to make it healthier, and I wanted to make it super easy so you don't have to bake them. They're great for like, eating outside or transporting. And so this recipe is awesome. It's just dates, some cocoa powder, a little bit of vanilla extract, some salt, and some walnuts. And look, I already like did something completely wrong. I pitted all these dates and I put them in here, but before I put them in here, I actually have to blend up my nuts. So pause. All right, let's start over again. So these are now all pitted, which is great, but the first thing I wanna add to the food processor is something that's gonna be crunchy, and I'm gonna use almonds. And remember, I was saying before, one of the ways that I'm really inspired to develop recipes is to never repeat an ingredient if I can. So we've already used walnuts in the pesto, so I'm gonna use almonds in the brownie bites. And you definitely want something crunchy for this. So I'm gonna use some regular almonds. One of the ways that I really love to kind of keep myself in check and eat really healthy is I store my nuts and seeds and things in these glass containers so that I can see them. So when even for me, I open my pantry and I'm inspired by the food that I'm visually seeing. And I'm not only inspired by it, but I start to salivate for almonds when I see the jar, right? And it's like front in mind. It's like top of mind, right there. So some almonds in the food processor with a little bit of salt, and I'm gonna just blend this together. And I love this recipe also because not just the reactions that it actually inspires and elicits out of people, but I love it because I realized the reaction is the thing that made this exciting for me. It really helped me to realize like, oh, people really, really love, like they go crazy for recipes that they can make, but that are kind of like showstoppers. So this one is definitely it. So I wanna pulse these first because if you added the dates and everything together, you just get this gooey mess. But now this is ready, I'm gonna add the dates. I think what shifted for me when I first made this recipe and I was getting that reaction for people, it changed things for me because it helped me to realize that I'm not only just a chef, but I'm an educator and I'm also a performer in my own right? Like I get to like make food for people and I get to see their reaction. And I think what inspired me from this recipe, why it was like kind of a game changer, was I realized that when I could get a reaction out of people, I use my guest or my audience as that meter. Like, is what I'm putting out working? Do people like it? And that's when I realized what I'm doing is also, performative. It's not just educational and it's not just fun. It's all about making people feel really excited about whatever it is that you're doing. And their reaction is the way that I continued to do this work. And so, I always say the best way to know if something's working is to watch somebody's response and then kind of like calibrate from there. And people will tell you what they think. And I think that's the most rewarding part about what I do, about food. I really like that. It's important, right? Or else I wouldn't know if what I'm making matters to people. But I know that when I have a showstopper or a game changer recipe like this, where it's like just as good or even better than the real thing, I know I have something good. I think that this recipe in particular was one of the first recipes that inspired me to actually start content creating and a cooking show online, and also helped me to like feel good enough and capable enough to do live events. So I've been the host of the Disney California Adventure Food and Wine Festival for 5 years. And in that experience, I really got to create live cooking shows in the park and different versions of a live cooking show. And I got to interview celebrity chefs and the best chefs in the world that would come to the park. And we would put on a show for them. We would cook for them, we would put on a show, and they would be interviewed by me while we were cooking together. And that was like when I kind of put all of these things together, my experience in media, my experience on television, my experience on the radio and in recipe development and in kitchens. How can I merge all these things? Well, it's as a creator online, right? Like it's how do I then give all of this information out to the world and allow people to consume it at their own pace and an evergreen forever. So this recipe was really kind of the beginning of all that. I remember when I first made this recipe, I knew it was gonna be good because the crumbs looked so yummy. I was like, oh my God, this is coming together, you guys. Like, this looks like it could be a really delicious bite, and it totally turned out. So it definitely worked. Add just a little bit of water as the glue. I realized too, when I first prepared this, I was like, oh, food can be super simple. Like, I don't need to make it that complicated for people to love it. And that was like whoa, having been a chef for many years, I realized like it doesn't have to be complicated. And actually people want the opposite of that. They want it simple. And so I love this recipe so much. You're gonna love it. Okay, perfect. This is done. Ugh, so good. So here's like the brownie batter, right? It's raw, but it's so good. And then best part, you gotta roll it up like brownie bites. I think the advice that I could give people that are nervous or intimidated to pursue getting behind a camera and creating, it's like, I just wanna say, try it. Like people think that I think people think it's scarier than it actually is. And very quickly, you'll forget that the camera is there as long as you're talking about things that matter to you. And I think that was really key for me. One of the things that I found was hard for me in restaurants was that I didn't connect all the time with everything that I was doing. So making puffs and purees and dusts and creating really unapproachable food, it didn't feel like me. And so I wasn't all that excited about it. And then, you know, beyond that, I realized that once I started creating, if I was talking about something that really felt important, I would love it and I would like light up. But if I was talking about something that I didn't really know about much, it wouldn't be as engaging. It didn't feel as exciting, right? And so for you, if you're a creator, my advice is like find the thing that you love talking about or you love doing, and you'll do it and time will just pass and you won't even notice, right? That's what you're supposed to be doing. That's what you're supposed to be talking about. It's so important to find that thing. And it may take you many, iterations of you to figure out what that is for you. But it's really important, I think, inner work to figure out what is it that fuels you and makes you fired up. Follow that. Okay, this is too small to plate, so, oh my God, so good. All right, our meal is ready. This was really fun, and I feel like stoked, right? This is like one of my favorite meals. Let's plate it up. And I love like colorful platters or whatever, and I'm gonna do family style. Why not, right? This is like all about my story, so I'm gonna just plate this and make it really nice. It's so important to plate. Plating is like one of the most important steps of food preparation that people often will miss. They think, oh, well, plating is, the end. It doesn't really matter. It matters so much because we eat with our eyes first. It's so true. So we put in all this effort into actually making the food. How can we make it as delicious looking on the plate? And it's really important to take your time with it. And in the industry, it's like, how can we make it as visually appealing as possible? And one of the ways to do that is to plate high, to plate clean, and to just make it nice. So I love plating. I think it's one of my absolute favorite parts of what I do. We've come this far. Like, how can I make it even more delicious? This is my final attempt at feeding the hungry person or viewer or whatever. And you've got to garnish. You can't forget your garnishes, so important. I think I'm gonna garnish with a little bit of extra virgin olive oil. I love it. We're about to eat this delicious meal, and I want to say thank you to you for watching my creator session. I had a blast.